Hello and welcome to another one of Lavathing9's audio replays for Civilization Wars for Warcraft 3. This time I'm playing top, and I'm with an in-house team of Statsman90210 and Civ Artist, and we are against people that claim they were in-house. Obviously, I haven't played in-house in about 2 years, so I'm not really keeping up on a lot of the people. But yeah, so they were kind of bragging in the lobby, saying that they were in-house and they were going to own everybody, so I guess they're confident. So their names are Jagergod, Sicknose, and Juggernaut2121. And I am on top, like I said, in the pink, yet again. And I'm posting this just to show my top little strategy, if you will. Now, one mistake I made right off the bat, which I'll acknowledge, is that I put the streams right in the front. I like to put the galleys first row, so they attract the raider fire, since they're strong against raiders. I don't know why I did it the opposite way. I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah. So right here is the only time that he pushes me into my base and damages the tower a little bit. From here on, I maintain lane control the entire game. So while we're waiting on stuff to happen, I wanted to comment on Statsman's mid setup. Last replay, I talked about how I wanted to work on my mid setup of my camps to get it a little bit better. And this setup I see a lot is the kind of bowl shape thing. Last game with Sucky $10, he did the same thing, except a little bit more acute of an angle, where they were closer together but farther out. And this is more of an obtuse angle, where they're closer back to the towers, but they're spread out a little more. I'm more of a fan of the obtuse, although you don't get those camps as forward as much as the acute angled one. I like having them spread out a little more, especially if they get splash damage, which they could get a list on mid if they want to fight it really hard. It doesn't happen a lot, but it especially happens with grenades, because a lot of times once you get up to that tech, someone will just make a grenade on mid with like a maceman or something, since it's fairly cheap for lane control, and you want to have those things spread out as much as possible to avoid that splash damage. So with this setup, I'm still not 100% certain on what I want to do with mid. I kind of been playing around with it a little bit. But I'm thinking about doing something similar to this, but having a space in between each of the camps so they're spread out a little bit more. And maybe I'll even push up a little bit more to make it more of an acute angle, but still have it spread out. I don't know. I'll make a mid video soon. That's in better quality than the first one. Excuse me. And then also about the spreading out thing, I wanted to note on Artist down here. His arrows are all tightly packed together like that. Now, he has a better setup than a lot of people normally do. A lot of people normally would have packed that horse in between the two swords and had like the sword between the tower, and then also had the archers all the way pressed up against the back of the swords and stuff, so everything's like a box. Now, that's an extremely bad idea, because what you're doing is you're just opening yourself up to splash damage, and since listas are fairly standard all the time on bottom, by packing all your units close together, you're just increasing the enemy's effectiveness of their lista. Let's look at what they did over here. They might have done that. No, they didn't do that. But yeah, he did a good thing by spreading the archers away from the swords. He did a good horizontal spread. He didn't do a great vertical spread, in my opinion. His swords and knights are fine, but his archers, I would have put a little space in between each one, just so your range doesn't get raped right off the bat, because a lot of times the listas like to target right past the melee, especially if they're pushing, so it can be fairly dangerous. So back to top, what I did was I upgraded everything to tier 2. He got me a Quinn and a lighthouse, and this is pretty much where we are all game with top. I'm constantly in his base. He never really pushes me out of it too much. Now, problem with him is a lot of people place stuff really strange on top. I guess people don't really know top that well. Like, mostly people get bottom right, people kind of get mid right, and then top publics normally mess up really badly. First of all, he didn't put anything up above the tower in the space up here, which I think is vital because a lot of times it'll steal the lanes, especially if you're fighting, if you're having like a swinging arm type of top game where it's going back and forth, and you want to have more gold income per tick. Putting those up there sometimes slide right by the mass of fighting and go steal lanes. Also spread stuff out again, which I'm a big fan of, spreading stuff out. Now top is a little harder to spread out because you don't have a huge amount of space because that tower's right there in the middle. But having that little space right there is good. And a lot of times what happens is your main bulk of it, where he has his stuff right here, will attack the enemy, and the enemy will focus on that, and then your top little things come along that are above the tower, and they will attack their ranged. Like, they'll go past their melee and attack their raiders or longboats, which is really helpful. So what I do is here, I single tech all the way to the university, and then I get gunpowder immediately. When playing top, I think gunpowder is really the only way to go if you're for your first tech in university, because nothing with machinery, sorry, I couldn't think about what I was talking about, is upgraded on top. So yeah, so that incorporates into my strategy. What I normally do is get that gunpowder, and then I upgrade all my raiders into caravels. And then one thing that I did here, which I normally don't do, I normally kind of go even up. Like after gunpowder, I'll go into machinery, and then I'll do metal, and then kind of like the typical way of doing it. But what I did was I did immediately into chemistry, because you unlock chemistry after you do that gunpowder. So I immediately did chemistry and upgraded all those caravels into frigates, which, I don't know, it kind of really worked out well. I mean, my frigates were going against his longboats in terms of the ranged battle. So obviously that's 2 tiers up, which is quite nice. And then I research guerrilla warfare, which top lane's really the only one I'd recommend doing that, unless you're mid and you want to give your top a fire ship. So I research that, and I make all my galleys into fire ships. That's normally what I do. I make my galleys into fire ships, my raiders into caravels, and then I make my quins into corrects, obviously. So yeah, and then I make the fire ships into ironclads. So that's basically it for this replay, what I want to talk about. And then his mid eventually gets him that thing above the tower. We thought he was going to rush, but then he got him 4 quins, which I don't really understand. And one of the main reasons we were able to beat him easily is because he marketed all 3 lanes. He got 1 market for each lane and upgraded into tier 4, and obviously you just saw he's getting 0 income from it, because he doesn't have bot or top, and he upgraded those to tier 4, which I don't understand. And he had mid for quite a while, and he got his mid market last, and now we took mid back. So he should have taken